On a magical Christmas Eve, a little girl discovers an unexpected connection with a homeless woman. The snow fell gently outside, swirling like dreams waiting to be realized. Inside, Emma clutched her warm mug of hot cocoa, the sweet, rich aroma curling around her like a cozy blanket. Her father was regaling her with tales of Santa Claus and his 8 reindeer, each story weaving a tapestry of holiday magic that filled their small Midwestern home with joy. Laughter bubbled from her mother as she arranged freshly baked cookies on the cooling rack, and for a moment, Emma felt complete bliss until an unspeakable curiosity ignited inside her. After the fire of holiday cheer began to dim, she slipped her chubby fingers into her mittens, feeling an inexplicable pull toward the soft whispers of the snowy night. Outside, the world transformed into a glistening wonderland, but a disquiet began to take root in her heart. She sensed the weight of loneliness in the crisp air as shadows danced at the edges of the town square, where glimmering lights clashed with the darkness of desperation. It wasn't long before her heart sunk. She spotted Hannah, a homeless woman, tucked beneath a makeshift shelter of a tattered blanket. Hannah's smile, warm yet weary, was a stark contrast to the festive cheer surrounding them. Emma hesitated, a knot twisting in her stomach, but something drew her closer, a deep-seated longing to understand lives lived differently from her own. Do you have family, miss?" Emma asked, her little voice barely cutting through the chilly night. With each question, a new layer peeled back, revealing the dreams and aspirations that once filled Hannah's life. The woman's story was heavy, each word laced with heartbreak. Emma felt a blend of empathy and confusion. How had someone so filled with kindness ended up here, while her own family prepared their feast? As Emma secretly brought sandwiches and hot cocoa from their hearty dinner to share with Hannah, the bond between them deepened. With every sip, Hannah whispered wisdom that softened the edges of Emma's understanding, but they were lessons her parents had overlooked, the pain of the world outside their warm home. Each gift felt like a silent rebellion against her family's oblivious cheer, feeding growing unease in her heart. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Emma's clandestine visits became a secret burden, one she carried with a mixture of determination and guilt. When her parents discovered her acts of kindness, shouting filled their cozy home, a cacophony of raised voices that shattered the holiday spirit. Conflicting emotions twisted Emma's insides, her parents' anger at the suggestion of sharing their wealth clashing with her desperate need for compassion to be recognized. Caught between two worlds, the warmth of her home and the cold truth facing Hannah, Emma clenched her fists, determined to bridge the divide. As her family's heated discussion continued, she wished desperately for a miracle to reveal the humanity in Hannah, unraveling the misunderstanding that felt heavy in the air. In the depth of her turmoil, the magic of Christmas stirred uneasily. Would a single moment of connection be enough? The night pressed on, her heart a storm of longing and hope, leaving Emma questioning the possibilities that lay just beyond the darkness, a bright light flickering on the horizon. The next morning, Emma woke to the sound of her parents discussing the events of the night before, their voices simmering with tension. It felt wrong to see the familiar outlines of their faces so tightly wound, especially after her magical encounter with Hannah. As the sunlight streamed through the frosted window, Emma resolved to forge a path that would allow her to understand more about the world outside, even if it meant facing her parents again. Seated at the breakfast table, her mother's furrowed brow and father's sullen silence wrapped around Emma like a heavy winter coat. They shared hot chocolate and pancakes, yet the sweetness was muddied by unspoken words. Each bite felt mechanical, happiness tasted distant. "Emma, we need to talk about last night," her father finally said, breaking the silence that had thickened between them. Emma sat up straighter, her heart racing, anticipation mixed with dread. "You can't just give away our things. We work hard for what we have." "But what if they don't have anything?" Emma protested, her voice trembling as she clutched her fork like a lifeline. "What does it matter if we share a little?" Her mother shook her head, her expression turning forlorn. Emma, you don't understand. We don't know her story. What if she's dangerous? The world is not as warm as it looks. Please focus on what we have as a family this Christmas. Emma's insides twisted painfully, their protective instincts contrasting sharply with the compassion she had felt. How could they ignore the realities of others when Hannah's struggles stung so close to her heart? Staring down at the stained tablecloth, Emma sensed a profound disconnect not just with her parents but with the very essence of her upbringing. She wanted to defend Hannah, but uncertainty began crawling into her mind. Was she wrong to feel this way? Restless, Emma excused herself. The urge to escape pushed her outside, where the snowfall had thickened overnight, blanketing the familiar landscape. She needed clarity and focus, she needed a plan. As she trudged through the snow, her thoughts flitted back to Hannah's gentle manner, the wisdom sparking in her weary eyes. Emma began to formulate a new resolve. She would approach this challenge not just as a child seeking to help but as a bridge between two worlds she found increasingly difficult to navigate. Steeling herself, she decided to learn more about the issues of homelessness, to gather information that could foster understanding. Back in the warmth of her home, she rifled through her father's old books and dusty magazines, searching for anything that might shed light on the complexities Hannah faced. Each page she turned ignited a spark of inspiration, widening her perception and deepening her determination. She could arm herself with knowledge, the very thing that might connect her family's world with Hannah's. That night, Emma sat beneath her blanket, a makeshift fort where she began writing a speech. With each word, she felt the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. She would advocate for Hannah. She would confront their sheltered view. She would need to summon every ounce of courage within her. That courage was soon put to the test when Emma overheard her parents discussing a charity dinner later that week. They were dismissive about the evening's cause, as if turning a blind eye to the plight of homeless individuals made it easier to sleep at night. This moment could not go unexplored, it was her opportunity. As she lingered behind the door, doubts started to creep in, wrapping around her confidence like tendrils of ice. But she steeled herself, ready to confront the boundaries of her home and the complexities of reality head-on. "I need to talk to you," Emma said, stepping into the room, her voice trembling yet firm. The moment of truth had arrived, and with it, a realization in her heart. Change begins with one voice, no matter how small. Would her parents listen? Could they be swayed? Emma knew their understanding hinged on the upcoming conversation, but an icy doubt nibbled at her. Resolve. The time had come to face the duality that had stirred so fiercely within her, paving the way for a confrontation she hoped would bridge the chasm between perceived safety and the raw reality of humanity. Emma's heart raced as she stood in front of her parents, their expressions a blend of confusion and surprise. The air felt thick, charged with unspoken tension. She could see her mother's hand grasp the edge of the table, nails digging into the wood as if searching for stability. This was it, she needed to dive into the discomfort. "Please, just hear me out," she said, her voice steady despite the turmoil swirling inside her. "I know you're worried about Hannah. I know how the world can be dangerous. But she's human, just like us. We can't ignore that." Her father looked at her, disbelief etched across his features. "Emma, this isn't just about her. It's about protecting our family. We don't know her. What if she's not what you think? But what if she is?" Emma countered, her voice rising without intending to. "What if she's just a person who needs help? We help people in our community. Why not her?" The silence stretched long and heavy between them. Emma's heart thudded in her chest, and self-doubt threatened to surface. She had practiced almost every word of her speech, but standing here with her family's skeptical gazes felt infinitely more challenging. "How do you know she hasn't made poor choices?" her mother asked softly, a hint of fear coloring her tone. "I'm starting to understand that we all make choices based on what life throws at us," Emma replied, her conviction growing. "Hannah isn't just a label or a story. She's a person with her own dreams and struggles." Emma could feel the shift in the room, even if it was subtle. She could almost sense the tightening grip of her parents' hearts, heavy with their ingrained perceptions. This was the power of open dialogue, the way it could create cracks in rigid beliefs. But as she spoke, uncertainty clawed at the back of her mind. Would her words be met with understanding, or the cold reality of stubbornness? "I've been reading about homelessness," she continued, drawing strength from the energy of her discoveries. "It's not just about lack of shelter. It's about losing connections, feeling dehumanized. We can make a difference. We have the ability to restore someone's faith in humanity." "Emma," her father said carefully, his brow furrowed. "We can't just throw caution to the wind. You've seen what's on the news. You're too young to recognize the real dangers. Maybe I'm too young to understand, but I'm old enough to care. And I'm begging you to care too." Her voice wavered, revealing the urgency and sincerity of her plea. "I want to help, not only for Hannah but for people in our community who feel invisible. Can we at least go to that charity dinner? We can learn." Her parents exchanged glances, unspoken communication passing between them. Emma felt her stomach twist tighter, every passing second stretching her courage to its limits. What if they still said no? "I don't want you to lose your childhood by taking on this burden," her mother finally replied, her voice softer now, a hint of vulnerability seeping through. "But this is part of growing up," Emma exclaimed, desperation creeping into her tone. "I don't want to be sheltered from what the world is. I want to do something real. If we don't take the first step, how can we expect a change? We must embody the compassion we say we value." The room fell into a contemplative silence as Emma's words hung in the air. She took a step back, aware that she had placed everything she believed on the table. The risk felt monumental. Finally, her father spoke, breaking the reflective quiet. "All right, let us consider it. But we need rules, boundaries. This needs to be safe." Emma felt a surge of relief wash over her, mixed with the thrill of change. Her parents were opening a door, albeit tentatively, and her own resolve crystallized into something more profound. This was just the beginning, but what new lessons awaited her on the other side of their cautious approval? As she breathed in the hopeful air around her, Emma realized the upcoming dinner would be her first real step as an advocate for change. Little did she know what she would uncover about herself and the world outside, and how much more her journey had yet to unfold. With her parents' tentative agreement still echoing in the space, Emma's mind raced with strategy, possibilities, and the next conversation she would need to navigate both with Hannah and within herself. The first encounter wouldn't just test her resolve but would reveal layers of understanding she hadn't yet imagined. Would she be prepared for what those revelations might mean for her and Hannah? The days leading up to the charity dinner unfurled like an intricate web, each moment interlaced with anticipation and uncertainty. Emma found herself torn between excitement and self-doubt, a cacophony of anticipation mingling with the suffocating weight of fear. She had spent countless hours preparing, reading and researching homelessness, but the looming encounter with Hannah transformed her theoretical knowledge into something tangible and profoundly daunting. She habitually adjusted her reflection in the mirror, practicing the welcoming smile she intended to greet Hannah with. Every time Emma rehearsed the lines in her mind, what to say, how to say it, an internal voice questioned her readiness. Who was she to offer solace to someone with a life so different from her own? Could her heart, so freshly ignited with purpose, withstand the gravity of what Hannah might reveal? As the dinner approached, Emma's excitement was tempered by the growing realization that this was not just an act of charitable kindness, it was a reckoning. Such decisions carved paths of transformation, leading to places within oneself that remained hidden. If she wanted to help Hannah, she needed to understand her struggles, but would she be strong enough to bear witness to them? The night of the charity dinner finally arrived, and the atmosphere buzzed with a mixture of opulence and palpable energy. Emma felt the warmth of her parents beside her, yet their caution loomed just as heavily. They engaged in light conversations, but Emma's focus narrowed, her awareness locked on the purpose that had brought them there. She felt a surge of determination flow through her. Even in this beautiful setting, adorned with twinkling lights and laughter, Emma sensed shadows lurking just outside the realm of comfort. The guests wore their wealth-like armor detached and polished, but Emma's heart ached for those who stood invisible behind the veils of privilege. As the evening unfolded, one conversation led to another, each person sharing stories of compassion and commitment, yet Emma's attention remained unwaveringly fixed on the doorway. Where was Hannah? Did she know they were here? Anxiety coiled tightly in her stomach as minutes ticked by like hours, and Emma questioned her decision. Then, as if summoned by the very fabric of her hopes, Hannah entered the room. Emma's breath caught in her throat. The tall woman had an unassuming grace about her, with a smile that seemed to weather storms. Emma could see cracks of hardship etched in her features, yet there lay resilience and strength and undeniable spirit that burned vividly against the backdrop of the evening. Hannah moved with purpose, likely scouring the room for the warmth that came only from genuine connection. Emma couldn't shake off the awareness that within Hannah's laughter and conversation resided narratives of strife and survival. This was the moment, the opportunity she had sought, a bridge to understanding. Her heart pounded against her chest with both trepidation and hope as she took a step forward, crossing the threshold into the unknown. Tender resolve lit her path, propelling her to do something real, to not merely observe the world around her but to live within it. "Hey, are you Hannah?" Emma asked, her voice surprisingly steady despite the storm within. Hannah turned, the light in her eyes flickering ever so slightly. "Yes, I am," she replied, an inviting smile emerging but shadowed by apprehension. With those 3 words, Emma realized she was on the precipice of something transformative. Questions flooded her mind, mingling with vulnerability. "What do you do when you feel invisible?" Emma dared to ask, her tone threading honesty with a dash of trepidation. Hannah paused, her gaze locking with Emma's, a connection forming in the very air they shared. In that moment, Emma sensed the shifting landscape of her life. Would Hannah's story unravel truths that Emma had yet to confront within herself? As she awaited an answer, Emma felt the tightness in her chest morph into something profound, a dawning awareness of her own eagerness to understand. This was not just about helping Hannah, but about embracing the messy, complex reality of humanity. With Hannah's response hovering on the brink, Emma's anticipation turned electric. Would this conversation open doors she didn't yet know existed? What depths of understanding awaited her after this exchange? Hannah took a moment, her expression shifting as if she were searching for the right words buried deep within. Emma's heart raced, the silence amplifying every tick of the clock, a reminder that she stood on the threshold of discovering something vital. "When you feel invisible," Hannah began slowly, her voice steady but laced with a weight that felt tangible, "you start to fade into the background, like a painting that's lost its color. You become a shadow, and the world moves on without you. But sometimes, all it takes is someone to notice you. To really see you." Emma absorbed the words, each one striking a profound chord within her. Hannah's vulnerability radiated off her, momentarily pushing Emma's self-doubt aside. She lingered in the solace of this connection, but as quickly as it came, the realization tightened around her heart again. What could she truly offer this woman weighed down by the realities of life? What could help bridge the chasm of their experiences? "Sometimes I feel like I'm invisible, too," Emma shared, the admission spilling out before she could second-guess herself. "I feel like I'm just expected to follow a script, like everyone else. It's suffocating." Hannah's brows furrowed, surprise melding with something deeper recognition. "You're not alone in feeling that way. The pressures of life, expectations, they can weigh heavy, can't they? You're trying to be more than what people see." The air thickened with the shared understanding forged between them, Emma glimpsing a world where her privilege and Hannah's hardships intertwined in complex ways. What did it mean to connect when each of them carried separate burdens? She instinctively leaned in closer, needing to peel back layers of their disparate experiences. "What do you do to make sure you're seen?" Emma pressed, her voice a mix of curiosity and a desperate need to learn. Hannah thought for a moment, her laughter lightening the grim drag of their conversation. "Sometimes, I stand taller. I speak louder not to demand attention but to remind myself that I matter. It's a daily fight, Emma. We all have our battles." As she spoke, Emma felt walls within herself shifting, bricks dislodging from her carefully constructed notions of what it meant to help. She had entered this encounter with the intention to save, but perhaps the true lesson here was about visibility and asserting value in contexts worn down by neglect. What if Emma hesitated, her thoughts bubbling to the surface? What if I learn from you? What if we face this fight together? Hannah's smile widened, the corners of her eyes crinkling with sincerity. You'd be surprised what could happen when you open those doors. The weight of those words settled heavily in the space around them. Hannah's life was laden with scars of survival, but there was also hope. It flickered within the quiet determination reflected back from her eyes. Emma swallowed, her mind racing with implications. This wasn't just a moment of charity, it was a partnership. She could learn, grow, and reclaim vitality for both of them amid shared narratives of struggle. Yet, a deeper dread began to coil within her as another layer of understanding unfurled, a revelation that would forge a path into her own psyche. Being seen wasn't merely about Hannah, it transcended her and whispered to Emma's own heart. Could she truly embrace the fullness of her identity if she ventured beyond the comfort of her upbringing? As she dug deeper into the line of questioning that arose in her mind, Emma felt the tension swell, leaving her breathless. What did it mean to reckon with her own privilege in light of Hannah's experience? And as the evening rolled on, Emma sensed the stirrings of truth getting dangerously close. She might not just learn to be a voice for Hannah, but she might have to confront her own fears and biases in a way she had never anticipated. What are you so afraid of? Hannah's question cut through Emma's reverie, a sharp yet honest probe. The question lingered in the air, a magnetic challenge that echoed deep within her. Would she have the courage to dissect her fears, expose her vulnerabilities, and allow this journey to reshape her essence? Emma could feel the walls of compatibility blending together, tightening the orb of challenge around her throat. Everything, she murmured, the truth raw but liberating as she confronted the swirling shadows of her internal struggles. Uncertainty thundered in her chest, yet a new determination sparked within. This confrontation would not just come from Hannah, but from within herself. Was she ready to step into the crucible of her evolution? With eyes glistening, Emma prepared to respond, fully aware of the turn her life was about to take. What dragon of society awaited them in the journey ahead? Emma's heart pounded in her chest like a drum echoing the unsteady rhythm of her thoughts. She had shared a truth that felt like a weight lifted, yet simultaneously, it anchored her to the ground, tethering her to an uncomfortable reality. The vulnerability between her and Hannah had sprouted a strange kinship, one that dared to drift into uncharted psychological territory. What am I afraid of? The question wrapped around her mind, tightening with relentless pressure. There was a rush of thoughts, the expectations of her family, her aspirations that felt insurmountable, and the lurking shadows of her past that haunted her. But now, amid her introspection, the most profound fear was her own inability to step beyond the realm of her privilege. Was she ready to confront the uncomfortable truths about her life, about what it meant to walk alongside someone like Hannah? If she embraced their partnership, how would that shift her identity? In this moment of reckoning, Emma felt a surge of determination intermingled with dread. If she chose to confront herself, she would have to peel back the layers of her existence, revealing unpolished edges and frayed threads of her carefully curated narrative. I'm afraid of being seen for who I truly am, she finally admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Hannah, always attentive, nodded slowly as if Emma's confession resonated deeply within her own experience. Why? What would that mean for you? Emma hesitated, her breath hitching. If people see me, they may not like what they find. They might see I'm just ordinary. Not enough. There, in Hannah's gaze, she observed the flicker of understanding paired with a tenderness that made her feel vulnerable yet safe. It was a paradox that stirred her, pushing against the tight confines of her self-imposed boundaries. Ordinary is a starting point, not a destination, Hannah countered gently. Sometimes, I think we have to embrace the ordinary to unearth the extraordinary in ourselves. You can't be everything for everyone, Emma. But you can be enough for you. Those words flared within Emma, igniting her internal dialogue with renewed fervor. There was an openness in Hannah's statement that challenged her to navigate through her preconceived notions of self-worth. Each layer she dislodged revealed waves of insecurity that she'd held onto for far too long. What if I failed? Emma's voice trembled at the thought. The prospect of failure had always loomed large in her life, a phantom that tangled her ambitions in fear and hesitation. Failure is just an opportunity in disguise. It's how we learn, Hannah replied, her conviction steady. Your journey is uniquely yours, filled with mistakes that make you wiser, stronger. If you never take a step toward the fight, how will you ever find out what you're capable of? Emma absorbed the idea, the power within it transforming the narrative she had crafted in her mind. Could failure truly serve as a stepping stone rather than a chasm to fall into? She contemplated how frequently she allowed the fear of inadequacy to isolate her, creating a chasm of unworthiness cloaked in the expectation to perform flawlessly. The realization brought forth a swell of emotion, a mix of liberation and overwhelming uncertainty. What if we both fail? She urged, the vulnerability at the forefront of her thoughts. Hannah's smile radiated warmth, breaking through the layers of tension entwined in the night air. Then we pick ourselves up, dust off the failures, and keep moving. Together. It's about navigating the journey, not just the destination. In the quiet that followed, Emma felt the walls surrounding her thoughts begin to soften. There was a power in partnership, a strength that lay in shared vulnerability. They were both forging pathways through their respective struggles, guided by newfound perspectives. Emma took a deep breath, feeling a shift within herself. She was beginning to see her privilege not as a weapon of domination but as a platform of possibility, one that, when paired with Hannah's resilience, could help both of them rise. What should our first step be? She asked, inspiration taking root within her as the embers of their conversation sparked a desire for action. Hannah regarded her thoughtfully, a glimmer of excitement shining through the cracks of her worn exterior. The first step is creating our own visibility. We have to share our stories. In that moment, a new determination anchored itself firmly in Emma's heart. They would not just be marginalized shadows, they would step into the light together, allowing their voices and stories to disrupt the silence that so often suffocated them. As they both sat in contemplation, Emma felt invigorated, her mind racing through strategies and ideas. There was a world of potential waiting to be explored, a spectrum of stories yet to be told. What do we say? Emma asked, more to herself than to Hannah, the shape of the adventure ahead forming in her mind. Her thoughts swirled with new possibilities, but the looming question of public perception still cast a long shadow. She needed to confront one more truth: who would they be if they shared their stories? How would the world react? And so, as the winter night deepened outside, pushing the boundaries of silence, Emma's heart surged with motivation. This was more than just a commitment to each other, it was a promise to herself, a pact that would guide her to reckon with both her complexities and strengths, no matter how daunting they appeared. As sense of urgency filled the air, Emma stood on the precipice of transformation, eyes set firmly on the horizon ahead. But with every step forward came the tremors of doubt, a stark reminder that confronting the world required more than resilience, it required action. The time had come to face the question lying at the bottom of her heart: would she have the courage to truly expose herself and embrace what it meant to be seen? Tonight would determine the path ahead, one that promised discovery but also danger. There was no return from this choice. The journey was set to unfold with unexpected trials waiting around the next corner. Emma awoke the next morning, her mind still swirling with remnants of the previous night's revelations. Sunlight filtered through her bedroom window, casting soft shadows on the walls, yet it failed to warm the chill of her doubts. This was a new day, filled with potential and decision, a day where invisibility clashed with the desire for authenticity. As she stepped into the kitchen, the mundane morning rituals felt out of place. Each clatter of dishes echoed against the backdrop of her mind, urging her to dive into action. She sipped her coffee, the bitter liquid grounding her thoughts, the warmth reminding her of the bond she had formed with Hannah. The question lingered: how could they make their voices heard? She envisioned a gathering, a dialogue that transcended mere words, a place where vulnerability could flourish. But would that be enough to combat the silence that perpetuated their struggles? Emma found herself reaching for her laptop, fingers hovering over the keys, hesitating. What if their stories didn't resonate? What if the world turned a blind eye, dismissing them as just another tale? Each thought weighed heavily. She wanted to make an impact, yet fear clawed at her confidence, insisting that her inner voice, the one that told her she wasn't enough, was right. With deliberate purpose, she opened a new document and typed a title, Voices Unveiled, Our Journey. The title trembled as if it too was uncertain. She felt a spark of excitement followed by the nagging whisper of insecurity. How could she lead when she herself was still navigating the shadows of self-doubt? Throughout the day, Emma mulled over her options, the anticipation building a sense of urgency within her. She needed to connect with Hannah, but first, she had to clarify her own thoughts. She sought a strategy, an outline that could stitch their voices together cohesively, yet the blank page remained dauntingly empty. As afternoon approached, Emma decided it was vital to meet Hannah. She felt an electric thrill at the thought of piecing their narratives together. Invigorated, she grabbed her jacket and made her way to the coffee shop they both frequented, the familiar route serving as a reminder of the twice-shared vulnerability that brought them together. When she entered, the warm aroma of roasted beans wrapped around her, a comforting embrace amid her whirlwind of emotions. Hannah sat at a corner table, her usual spot, intent on her notes. This time, however, the sight felt heavier, laden not just with words but with the weight of their intentions. "Hey," Emma began, her voice catching on the edge of nervousness. Hannah looked up, her expression shifting from focus to affectionate encouragement. "I have been thinking a lot about what we discussed," Emma ventured, settling into the chair across from Hannah. "About visibility. We need to create our narrative, share our truths." Hannah's eyes brightened. "Yes. We can build a platform where we can express our experiences without fear, a way to connect with others who might feel the same. But what if our stories don't resonate? What if we expose ourselves and get rejected?" Emma's heart raced at the prospect, a surge of doubt surging forward. Hannah leaned forward, her intensity matching Emma's anxiety. "It's a risk, but it's also our truth. Every rejection or misunderstanding doesn't diminish the validity of our experiences. It just means we delve deeper, learn, and adapt. Besides, vulnerability invites connection." Emma nodded slowly, absorbing the essence of Hannah's wisdom. Perhaps the fear of rejection was simply a step on this path they were forging together. She envisioned individuals, like themselves, hidden within their vulnerabilities but longing to be heard. Perhaps their stories could encourage others to shed their silence. "Let us do this," Emma declared, her determination crackling through her words. "Let us create our platform, starting with our own stories." As they brainstormed, Emma felt a shift within her, a subtle recognition of her own voice stirring into life. The initial conflict of self-doubt transformed into a powerful proclamation of self-worth. She would not only be enough, she would contribute something meaningful. They spent the next few hours crafting their narrative outline, sharing snippets of their lives with swift excitement. Each revelation brought relief and empowerment, binding them closer together as they shaped their journey into something tangible. But then a new fear crept in, more insidious than the last. What if their audience dismissed them, labeling their stories as frivolous or unimportant? Would the world really be ready to listen? As they prepared to leave, Emma caught a glimpse of herself in the cafe's window reflection, a woman unafraid to step into the light. She was no longer passive, she was an instigator of change. But the call to expose herself still felt monumental, daunting, a leap into the unknown. "Tonight, I want to brainstorm what exactly we will share about ourselves," Emma said, her brows furrowing slightly. "We must choose our words wisely, they hold weight. I want our stories to empower, not to be met with dismissal." "Yes, they will see us, and that visibility will matter," Hannah replied, her voice carrying strength as they left the cafe. As they walked out, Emma felt the night air bite into her skin, a reminder of the tightrope she walked. She was on the cusp of something life-altering. But with every step, doubt's whispers trailed like shadows, and she knew the next phase of their journey required courage of a different kind. In the silence that followed, Emma pondered the depths of exposure. To unveil her story, to share her truth, meant risking authenticity for acceptance. Would the world be ready to embrace the imperfect and the raw? Would she be brave enough to accept the consequences of her own revelation? This was only the beginning of their journey, and within it lay answers, but also hidden traps. One thing was certain, the true test of courage was about to unfold. The evening air hung heavy with anticipation, the soft glow of twinkling lights illuminating the streets as Emma and Hannah reconvened in Emma's living room for their next brainstorming session. As they settled onto the couch, cluttered with notebooks and coffee cups, Emma felt a palpable charge between them. "Tonight's our chance," Emma declared, her enthusiasm wresting power from her doubts. Breathing deeply, she faced Hannah, eager to solidify their narrative. "We need to dig deep into our experiences. What moments define us? What do we want to convey?" Hannah nodded, flipping through her notes, her drive infectious. "Let us outline key themes. Vulnerability is clearly one. What about resilience or transformation?" Emma's heart raced. "What if we frame it around our struggles? How we turn pain into purpose? People need to know they aren't alone." The initial tremors of confidence reverberated through her voice, yet the shadows of her insecurities loomed closer, whispering hesitations. As they interacted, Emma began recounting a painful memory from her past. "When I lost my job, I felt like I lost my identity. I was constantly questioning my worth. That's when the doubts began to seep in. The weight of vulnerability hung in the air, but she pressed on. Yet in that chaos, I discovered my resolve. I had to rebuild myself, brick by brick." Hannah listened intently, her gaze piercing through to the heart of Emma's expression. "See, that journey is powerful. It shows that even in our darkest moments, we can find light." Emma could feel Hannah's support bolster her spirit, but she wondered if the world would see this bravery the same way. "What if we share our failures, too?" Emma ventured, her voice trembling. "What if people don't respond well? What if they ignore us completely?" She realized her inner critic had surfaced again, her fear uprooting budding confidence. "We can't control how others perceive us," Hannah replied, her tone steady and assuring. "What we can control is the strength of our voice. It's like we're planting seeds. Not every seed will flourish instantly, but some will grow into something profound." A silence fell between them, thick with the weight of realization. Emma was acutely aware that she was not merely confronting her fears, she was embarking on a path of self-discovery. Her frailty was evolving into purpose. "What if we used our fears as stepping stones?" she suggested, a hint of resolve emerging. "Exactly. Using rejection as a catalyst. That perspective is so empowering." Hannah grinned, her face lighting up with sudden clarity. "It's about reframing our weaknesses. They don't diminish us, they mold us." Suddenly, the tension in the room seemed to lift slightly. Emma's thoughts cascaded into the next stage of their journey. "We should create a list of the narratives we want to craft. We could invite others to share their stories alongside ours, bring a more diverse representation." Hannah beamed, their energy intertwining, feeding off each other's fervor. "Yes. We can highlight different voices, show the multifaceted nature of struggle and recovery. It opens the door for others who feel invisible." A new fear flickered within Emma. Would inviting others into their narrative dilute their own message? But what if we lose the authenticity of our journey amidst a sea of others? Isn't it just our truth we should focus on? "Not at all," Hannah countered, leaning in as if grounding Emma. "It will add depth. Our truths resonate on their own, combined with the experiences of others, they become a tapestry. Individual threads woven together for a greater cause." Emma's fingers danced over her notes, the ink making contact with paper like a reaffirmation of her hopes. "You're right. This is a collective journey of truth, a space free from judgment." As they created their list, Emma felt her own metamorphosis solidifying. She wasn't just a follower, she was a leader in this narrative, unwrapping layers of herself she'd ignored for far too long. With their ideas flowing freely, Emma took a moment, looking deeply into Hannah's eyes. "You're making this possible for me, you know?" The weight of her gratitude was palpable, yet just as the confidence surged, a fear of their impending vulnerability struck. The thought of exposure tightened around her throat. "Tomorrow, we need to face our fears again and reach out for feedback," Hannah added, pulling Emma from her reverie. We need to ground our experiences, evaluate how they resonate. Right, Emma responded, a tinge of anxiety threading through her thoughts. But will it be enough? The unease settled back into her core like an unwelcome guest. Hannah extended a hand in reassurance. It's just as much about how we embrace the feedback as it is about what we receive. That night, Emma found herself staring at the ceiling, wrestling with both anticipation and dread. There would be no turning back, they were steering into uncharted waters. With each choice, she could either forge ahead towards self-acceptance or retreat into the shadows of doubt. As the night deepened, Emma's resolve solidified. She could no longer shy away from confrontation. Nothing could stifle her voice now. She was on the brink of a revelation, and yet, fear laced through every hopeful thread. The moment of truth was upon her, and it would demand all she had. Still, the prison of uncertainty loomed large. Would the world embrace her journey, or would her efforts be met with indifference? With that thought lingering, sleep eluded her. Tomorrow held power and peril in equal measure. Emma understood then that the challenge was not merely about sharing her story but uncovering the strength within to stand by it, regardless of the outcome. But as the dawn approached, a new possibility emerged. What lay beyond the confrontation would redefine everything, not just for her, but for those who had felt just as invisible. Emma's next move was not simply a leap, it was the beginning of a transformation, one that would echo far beyond her own story. As the sun rose, casting a tentative glow through the window, Emma stirred, pulled from restless dreams by the promise of the day ahead. She felt the weight of her decision looming over her, reaching out for feedback on their project. This was more than a simple test, it was a leap into her truest self, a confrontation with her anxieties that had festered for far too long. After hastily dressing, Emma brewed a strong cup of coffee, the familiar ritual grounding her amidst the turmoil swirling beneath her surface. Each sip seemed to encourage her, nudging her towards the reckoning that awaited. There was little time to dwell on the what-ifs. She needed to embrace this moment decisively, much like Seth had always told her to do. Her initial panic transformed into a flicker of determination. Focus on the message, she whispered to herself, pushing a stray hair behind her ear as she settled at her dining table. The pile of notes and outlines felt visceral, each line a step closer to her own truth. What they were crafting was not just about sharing their struggles but a call to arms for others to do the same. Just take a deep breath and start, she said louder, imagining how she would convey the importance of their stories to potential collaborators. Even as her hands trembled slightly over the keyboard, each keystroke served as a reminder of the stakes at hand. Within an hour, Emma's fingers flew across the keys, creating an email that detailed their intentions. It was a heartfelt invitation to fellow creatives, their voices echoing the struggles Emma and Hannah were willing to share. She hesitated, her index finger hovering over the send button. What if they don't see the value? Her inner critic sneered, relentless in its assault. Emma wrestled with the thought, but another voice broke through, one that had been nurtured during her planning sessions with Hannah. What if this outreach connected them with others who felt unseen and unheard? What if their collective vulnerability led to healing? With a swift motion and newfound resolve, she clicked send. An anxious flutter took hold of her stomach, but for the first time, that angst felt like a confirmation of her courage. Now we wait, Emma murmured to herself, even as doubts lurked in the shadows. Freeing herself from the need for immediate affirmation, she took a moment to breathe deeply again. The act of reaching out rippled within her. This was more than calculated, it was brave. The days seemed to stretch endlessly as Emma busied herself with various tasks, but her mind remained on the feedback. They would need it to refine their narrative. What was enveloping her was more than worry, it was an uncomfortable pressure, a tangible fear of rejection mingled with the exhilarating potential of connection. As the afternoon wore on and the sunlight began to soften, her phone buzzed with an email notification. Heart racing, she opened it to find a response, a warm invitation from someone she had admired for years. They expressed enthusiasm for collaboration, eager to share their story and insights. A shockwave of elation coursed through Emma, banishing doubt for the moment. They see the value, she exclaimed, her voice echoing with a joy she hadn't expected. Yet even as she reveled in this small victory, lingering uncertainties flickered in her mind. Would others respond just as positively? Would their combined narratives hold true to the authenticity they sought? Energized, she gathered her notes and began outlining their next steps. Each point felt like it was pulling her deeper into a narrative not just ripe for sharing, but also for transformation, a journey that demanded depth and honesty like never before. The evening fell as she and Hannah met again, excitement intermingling with tension as they prepared to share the first wave of feedback. Emma's anticipation felt electric, crackling along her skin as they discussed their next steps. Just think, Emma began, every voice we invite adds weight to our story. This is our chance to create something that doesn't just speak to our experiences, but to a wider audience who has been searching for validation. Hannah's eyes sparkled, mirroring Emma's own growing resolve. Exactly. This could become a movement of transformation. We are planting the seeds for others to feel empowered. With fresh ideas blazing in both their minds, Emma realized they weren't merely charting a course for their project but paving a pathway for their personal growth. The possibility widened, the horizon stretching infinitely ahead, each decision pushing them further into unexplored territories of both their art and their souls. But before they could forge ahead, the reality of the vulnerability waiting to be born struck Emma like a gust of cold wind. Could they withstand the scrutiny? Would their authentic stories resonate deeply enough to make the impact they craved? The weight of these questions filled the air as they began to outline the feedback process. The fear of exposure clung to her, balancing the thrill of potential change with the anxiety of judgment. As darkness fell outside and the city lights flickered to life, Emma felt the universe converge. The essence of her journey flashed before her. This was a chance to reclaim her voice and reshape her narrative. The moment was imminent, and as she prepared to step into the unknown, a kaleidoscope of emotions surged within her. As she turned to face Hannah, horizon-wide possibilities whispered truths she had yet to fully acknowledge. This daring leap into vulnerability was now a cornerstone of their intended message, an echo of the transformation they sought not just within themselves but for everyone else who felt hidden. But before she could fully grasp the magnitude of what lay ahead, a sudden notification echoed through the silence, a reply to her email that could change everything. Emma felt her heart seize, anticipating the unfolding reality. What would this response bring, hope or another layer of challenge? The moment had come to reveal what lay at the heart of her burgeoning transformation. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm golden hue across the living room, Emma felt the intensity of the moment shift within her. It was not just a reply to an email, it was a confirmation that she was moving toward her intentions. With shaky hands, she clicked the notification. Dear Emma, thank you for reaching out. I would love to hear more about your vision. Let's connect for coffee on Thursday. Looking forward to it. Best, Samantha. The breath Emma had been holding released in a rush. Relief washed over her, mingled with exhilaration. It was an opportunity, a bridge to convey their collective message, a conference table where their stories could become the bedrock of something transformative. Emma! Hannah exclaimed, her voice lilting with excitement. This is it. We're stepping into a larger arena. Emma smiled, feeling the weight of their journey shift into a realm of possibility. What had begun as a venture to illuminate the invisible had transformed into a rallying cry for others who stood in silences just like theirs. Thursday, Emma murmured, the day extending into her thoughts like an open invitation to the unpredictable. We need to be ready. The rest of the evening blurred into a whirlwind of preparation, their excitement pulsating through every plan and every detail they sketched out. Together, they defined their objectives, planned for potential questions, and considered their narrative structure with an urgency that bubbled with enthusiasm. Together, we'll tap into our vulnerability, Emma declared with newfound clarity. We're not just speaking, we're inviting people to see us fully. Days passed, each moment leading Emma closer to Thursday, hypnotized by a juxtaposition of anticipation and self-doubt. Would Samantha see the value in their combined narratives? Was their story woven well enough to resonate with her? On Thursday, Emma arrived at the cafe early, her heart thumping against her ribs like a distant drum. Memories of her transformation flitted through her mind, those moments spent with Hannah, learning to shed her fears and embrace the importance of emotional visibility. She felt the metamorphosis already beginning inside her. When Samantha arrived, Emma greeted her with a warm smile, the nervousness fading slightly as they settled into conversation. Each word exchanged felt significant, building a connection that deepened Emma's sense of purpose. As they discussed their experiences, Samantha's expression shifted, interest sparkling in her eyes. "Your story and Hannah's is compelling," Samantha affirmed. "There's a sincerity that invites others in, a warmth that radiates through the challenges you both faced." A burst of pride filled Emma. Samantha understood the essence of their journey. The validation ignited a quiet yet potent confidence within her. "What do you think our next steps should be?" Emma asked, her commitment to growth evident in her tone. Samantha leaned back, contemplating. "You both should host a workshop. Create a safe space for others to share their stories alongside yours. This kind of authenticity breeds connection." A wave of excitement pulsed through Emma's veins, washing away any remnants of doubt. They would not only share their experiences but empower others to do the same. She could envision a circle of voices, each story threading together a complex tapestry of humanity. Over the following weeks, Emma and Hannah worked tirelessly. They honed their outline, reached out to other potential collaborators, and navigated the complexities of their mission. Step by step, they transformed their fears into strengths, fueled by every approval, every connection forged, and every story shared with an open heart. Finally, the day of the workshop arrived. The cafe buzzed with anticipation. Participants began to fill the room and settle into a circle designed for comfort, a blend of vulnerability and community. As Emma glanced around the room, navigating the sea of strangers, she absorbed the rich mix of emotions flooding her. "Today, we share our truths," she began. Her voice steady but filled with fervor. "This journey is about visibility, recognizing the stories in all corners of the room." The exercise that followed unfolded like a delicate dance, a beautiful exchange of power and vulnerability. Every story shared acted as a balm, bringing healing to those who felt unseen. Emma felt a surge of accomplishment, a dawning realization that uncovered strength amidst the stories. "You can't imagine how difficult it was for me to share, but seeing the strength around me helped me in ways I didn't expect," one participant recounted, her voice thick with emotion. As the session culminated, Emma caught Hannah's eye, a silent acknowledgement passing between them. They had achieved something profound. They had transformed themselves from individuals consumed by concern for invisibility into pillars of strength and connection that echoed a message worth spreading. By the end of the day, Emma understood that the journey didn't just empower others, it radically reshaped her own identity. As they packed up, she realized she held the threads of her experience in her hands, no longer bound by fears of being seen but rather surrendering to the beauty of connection. Standing on the cusp of what lay ahead, Emma breathed deeply, a wellspring of newfound confidence radiating from within. It was clear now the intersections of her experience with Hannah, and the insights gained along this shared journey had strengthened her spirit beyond measure. The once weighty burden had transformed into a badge of honor. In this moment of authentic achievement, Emma smiled, knowing she was indeed enough, not just for herself, but for the world that had begun to open before her. Armed with the lessons learned, she stood ready not only for herself but for anyone who had ever felt invisible. Now was the time to step forward, to embrace the journey still unfolding for her and every individual willing to share their narrative. The moment had come for her to invite others into the light that she had found within herself, and as she prepared to do so, she felt confident that change was waiting just outside the door. Emma had conquered her insecurities, transformed her purpose, and pushed beyond the boundaries that had stifled her voice. She was a person who had achieved clarity, connection, and understanding, a testament to the journey that had defined her becoming. So, get ready world, Emma was stepping into her strength intact, powerful, and proud. And now, if you found inspiration in Emma's journey just as she stepped into her strength, you need to subscribe now to the channel. Don't let another moment pass because you want to miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. The support makes all the difference. Comment below your reactions and theories about where Emma's journey might go next. Share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to hear this powerful conclusion. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand just how crucial it is to support each other through these actions. Embrace your own story.